know what, Jamie? Let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We got to go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people. Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University, and we are joined today by former Notre Dame defensive back Shaun Crawford, also of the Varsity House podcast. And Shaun, I'm going to put my hand up right away. You have been on the show. I think this is your fourth appearance, and big friend of the pod. On the last show you were on for the Ohio State preview, I didn't plug Varsity House. That's my bad. That is not good. You get someone on, you got a Varsity House podcast, you got to promote their work. And I forgot to do it because we were so jacked up about the Ohio State game. So I'm going to do that right now. You have a new podcast out. I think Ian Book, you had Ian Book on your show recently. Is that live and ready to go?
No, it drops this Friday.
Drops this Friday. Good. We can plug it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Dropping Friday. There's some clips that went around on Instagram. So that's how I know about it. So that's what's coming up for everybody. So you're going to want to check that out. And you're going to want to check out a show that we have tomorrow coming out, a new podcast that we have on covering women's basketball with Dara Mabry. It's called Dimes with Dara. It's going to be like a full season thing. We're very excited about that. So you're going to want to check that out. We're going to debut that tomorrow, which is Wednesday. And it's going to be great. We're very excited about it. So catch that. Women's basketball, men's basketball, insights from her. Obviously just left the basketball team. So that's going to be awesome. Check out, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss anything. Really appreciate you guys doing that. And before we get started, Shaun, it's always, you understand how it is when you're making content, you're making things, you need good audio, you need good visuals. The visuals are very important. And so one thing to do that, we're going to start out with VSR Media today, Jamie. Founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots and senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. And another way to kind of check out what VSR has for you, go to their Instagram, right? You can go to their Instagram page, and they got a lot of like clips of, things that they can do for you, whether you're getting engaged or whether it's a highlight reel, whether you're promoting your business. So that's a good thing to check out. All right, fellas. We need to talk about this game. And, usually at this point, we're kind of moving on from it. This would be a mailbag show, but we have it's a bye week this week. So I wanted to still dig in because this was such a good game. And I'll start with you, Shaun, on just like what you saw from the game. You were at the game, you're on the sideline. How good was this performance from the Notre Dame defense? Held this USC offense to 4.1 yards per play. They had negative EPA per play on the night. Did you expect that going in? I think you felt like Notre Dame had a good chance to win, but do you expect that kind of performance from the Notre Dame defense?
Honestly, I thought it was going to be. I thought USC was going to score a lot more. I did think that. I thought that was that was going to be the performance by our offense. I thought we were going to be capable of putting up 35 plus points against a defense like USC. But I was surprised in the way that our defense played against their offense. Obviously because of last year's performance, but also just the performance that Caleb Williams has been doing, or how he's been playing this year as well, and then also them getting a key player back. I forget, I don't know his name, but number one, I think it's Zachariah.
Zachariah Branch, yeah.
Zachariah. So getting him back, I was like, it was going to be tough, to keep them bottled up. And then as well, like the night, it rained throughout the day a little bit, but then it cleared up and then it became dry towards the end of the night. So I was like, okay, like they should be fine. They don't necessarily need I saw the video of them spraying the water and thing throughout the week. So I was like, they should be
Yeah.
fine being able to catch the ball. So yeah, I was surprised, and honestly, I mean, when you go into a game, Caleb Williams is a hell of a player. He's a playmaker, and he's going to try to extend plays. But unfortunate for him, fortunate for us, some of those extended plays turn into turnovers. And I think that I don't think you ever go into a game thinking that we're going to be able to create 4+ turnovers in a game. And so taking that aside, I thought they were going to score more. I thought they were going to be more productive on offense. But credit to our defense. We honestly, Al Golden had our DBs with our eyes back to the ball a lot. And when you're playing a quarterback like Caleb Williams, you want to be concerned of the run and maybe not play as much man as you did, or as you do. But then being able to keep eyes on him, I think that allowed us to create some turnovers in the secondary.
What did you see, Jamie, just on the defensive line and some of the stuff you saw? We're going to pull up some clips here in a second. But what did you see from Al Golden there that really was able to bottle up the USC offense? I did not expect to see that. Like, honestly, I think we both kind of felt like, Notre Dame, they had a good plan, right? They've had a good plan all year, and they've done a really good job with their organization in the secondary, right? We've talked about that a bunch, about how you just don't see busts back there. And it's interesting, like on the first interception, I think there actually was a bust because either DJ Brown or Maris were supposed to pick up the tight end, and neither of them did. Ended up working out for Notre Dame because of the pressure Javonte Jean-Baptiste got. But what did you see up front that they were doing to really confuse Caleb Williams defensively?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, I mean, the main thing was it was confusing. The protection calls, they were like off the whole game for USC, because they just like that last sack of the game, I think, was a perfect example of it, where Jaylen Sneed was lined up, like he's stand up, but he's like a 3 tech, right? He's essentially like outside shade of the guard, and that right tackle, he sees Maris Liefeld outside, and his eyes are on him and only on him. That's all he was worried about, was that threat. And so when Sneed came in and they were running like some kind of game up front, where he basically just like ricocheted off of the inside of that right tackle. That right tackle didn't even know he was there. Like, never even thought about him. Didn't have eyes, whatever. All he was thinking about was Liefeld. And when Liefeld didn't come right away,
let's share it, Jamie. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So essentially, you can see over the right guard, that is Jaylen Sneed, right?
Yeah,
that is Jaylen Sneed. And 76, the right tackle, he's looking at Marist. His eyes, you can see how his head is tilted. Right, he's looking at Marist, or he's thinking potential rusher out of that nickel there, right? Or that DB. And right there, inside shoulder off of that. And look, that's how you run a perfect stunt right there, right? Where it's like that. And then where is Williams gonna go here? He could, unless he just gets out right out of the gate and takes that right there, there's no chance. But even then, there's the other looper, right? Like, there's Bertrand, and Cross is splitting a double team here, right? So and the reason is because 70 has to let that go, because he's like, oh, here comes Bertrand here too. So the back's taking two guys. Like, this whole thing it's all confusion up front. It's all confusion, and there is no, and it is a lot like how what happened against Duke, and that was the game really where Notre Dame, you started to see all the games they did up front where everything was tighter. Everything was tighter, because when you run these, and Shaun will tell you too, when you run a blitz or you run any kind of games, everything has to fit. And if some guy gets out of their fit, that's when a guy can run, and that's when there's like a huge hole that can open up, and that's when Williams can take off. But where's he going to take off here? There's nowhere he can go. So even if he wants to escape to get to anywhere, there is nowhere. There is nowhere to go, because he's feeling, and then that's on top of JJB beating the left tackle off the edge, and him having Williams forced to step up here. So this is like the perfect play to show exactly kind of what Notre Dame was able to do here, where there are no good options there. Like, Williams just couldn't, even if he wanted to escape and do some of the things that he did last year.
Yeah.
There was nowhere for him. And that's also the thing too, why you want to rush 5, you want to rush 4 as much as possible, because if you're rushing 3, that just leaves, not only does that give him time to buy time and all that too, but it also just, if he wants to step up and run somewhere, he has that room, because there's going to be room with 3. But when it's 5 and it's like this, you can collapse the pocket and do exactly like what happened here.
Shaun, I want you to talk to us about the coverage you see in the back here. So it looks like 2 cover man under, but Ramon Henderson, he's basically closing off any sort of crossing route, like he's turning his back to the sideline over here. And Thomas Harper is doing a similar thing. What are they doing on that play in regards to what the safeties are doing? So you see here, Ramon Henderson here has his back. Thomas Harper has his back as well. What are they doing here as far as, it looks to me like basically Ramon Henderson is saying, I'm going to send you up the middle here, because he doesn't want the receiver to come anywhere over here. He's going to cut that off. And he wants, if he's going to get on this side of the field, he wants him to go on top of him. But what do you see from these 2 defenders? Because this is really like these are essentially 2 nickel spots right here with these 2 guys. And that's obviously somewhere where you excelled. So what are those guys doing there in the secondary?
Yeah, so like you said, it looks like they're playing 2-man here with the pressure. And so their job is to not let the receiver go inside, or if they do go inside, make it very hard for them to get inside and then slip underneath, because we have the overtop help. And so you can look at Ramon here. He plays it, very perfectly, like sort of like a middle runner in any cover 2. And so what he's doing here is they're not worried about, anyone on the backside. That's the responsibility of those guys to the boundary. And so here they're able to play low hip. And you can even see the corner on the outside. He starts outside. I want to say he maybe starts head up. Receiver gets inside of him, and then he goes to slip
you're talking about Cam right here?
Yeah, Cam Hart.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see as he gets inside of him, he goes to slip that inside hit, because we know that we have over the top help. And so when you play a guy like Caleb Williams on this play specifically, it was a great thing that we got pressure, because we have a lot of guys with our back turned to the quarterback. And so on this play, the pressure is huge. And this is something that makes it cloudy for any quarterback. When you have 2 guys playing, or when you have guys playing a low hip with 2 safeties over top, and by this time of the game, we've had a couple interceptions as well. So I think he's very hesitant on making any questionable throw that he might have made if he didn't have those earlier turnovers. And so I think being able to get pressure here, which is huge with the way they designed it up. And then also those guys sitting low hip and playing that perfectly. I think this is one of those things where you talk about the defense, or the D line and the DBs all being in one unison. This is an example of that right here.
Yeah. When you say low hip, I take that to mean you're talking about playing underneath. So if this player was to run a crossing route, and let's say he had time to throw it, that he's going to be underneath that. And so he's going to basically, if the ball has to be completed, he's going to have to throw it over the top into the safeties. Is that what so when you say low hip, are you just saying playing underneath essentially? Because that's where Thomas Harper is as well.
Yeah. So when I say low hip, it's inside hip. And we try to teach like 1 by 1. So 1 yard inside, 1 yard off the receiver, because if you are right next to him, it's easy to get thrown by. And so right here, I think Thomas Harper's in a great position right here. I would say that's 1 by 1, to where it's like the only place that the quarterback can fit that in, he'll have to throw it over his head, and hopefully our safety can, drive downhill, because he has eyes on the quarterback. And so and then you can see also on the outside, Cam Hart, he starts head up, and then he's able to slip to the inside as the route develops, to get back in good position, because he knows he has a safety over top.
Yeah, so this is, Notre Dame ran a lot of this, and this is the type of defense that I feel like is very difficult for teams to run against USC. People talk about like how to stop a Lincoln Riley offense. And to me, this is like this entire play is the key because you're rushing 5, but to me it's 4 because Marist isn't really coming. Like he's sitting there waiting.
He is actually more of a spy.
Yeah, so he's spying here, so he's not really coming on the play. And you play man underneath, and so you're be able to be sticky with these guys, and then you have 2 over top as well. So you're guarding basically all things while sending a pressure that isn't compromising numbers, right? And I think that's where like you don't want to get unsound against this team because that's when you get beat. And usually people think about like sending pressure is like you have to give up 1 to get something else. So you have to give up numbers in the back in order to get the pressure there. And that's where Lincoln Riley's teams, I feel like they get you all the time. Notre Dame didn't have to do that in this game. And that's like the key to everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's obviously not something that Notre Dame saw or Notre Dame was able to accomplish last year.
Yeah. And, just because just to add to kind of what, you and Shaun were saying when, you're playing man and as you say, your back's turned, right? That means that like, if a guy scrambles, I mean, he
has a long way to go. Yeah.
It could be a house call, right? Like it could be, which is why there's 2 reasons why teams don't play man against or much man against USC. One, they don't have the athletes to cover those guys, right? They obviously have a ton of great skill talent, right? They don't have they don't have Jordan Addison. They don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. on their team, right? They don't have that, but they have a bunch of guys who can beat man coverage against 99% of the teams that they play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one reason. And then the other reason is that, like, as you guys were saying, you turn your backs to it. And because Williams, if he gets room there, and that could be like a 50-yard run or something, right? And that's why you don't see that a lot of the times against Duke. Notre Dame didn't play like as much man as they kind of normally would because they were worried about Leonard running as much. And they actually got burned, once bad for like a 30-yard scramble for it, right? So that's why you're worried about that kind of thing. And it's kind of like one of those like cardinal rules on defense. It's like, man, you play against a scrambling quarterback or a guy who can really hurt you as a runner. You want to play as much zone as possible because if you play man and your backs are turned, you can get beat. And that just, it gives you that. So in a way, it's like taking a chance. Like your rush has to be so good and you have to be so disciplined. But Notre Dame really they had the plan and they had the athletes that could accomplish it.
Shaun, I feel like this is kind of the best group of DBs Notre Dame's had since like 2017. You missed 2018 with the ACL, I think it was, but in 2017, you guys you were in the slot and you had Nick Watkins, you had Julian Love, who had like a ton of breakups that year. You also had Troy Pride in a backup role to Nick Watkins, and I was thinking about like during the game when Caleb Williams threw that 3rd interception where he was rolling left and he threw across his body and Ben Morrison made the interception on that play. Like that's when I started thinking like it reminded me very much of the Nick Watkins pick that he got against USC in 2017. And I thought, man, this is like a similar game in that was a really good offense coming into it. They had lost the game, yes, but I think they were ranked 11th, like right or like 11th or 13th, something like or 11, 12, 13 in that area. Coming into that game, that was a huge game for you guys. And it was another one where I think going into it, I think a lot of people would have predicted Notre Dame to win, but not necessarily by the margin that they did. So did you feel the same way? Like, did it seem like that was the kind of thing? Because I think you guys had a really good plan in that game as well, where Tevon Coney got the turnover on USC's first possession that kind of propelled you guys onto a big game there. Like, did you feel like that was like a similar kind of outcome to the way the game was unfolding on Saturday?
Yeah, and I love the way our DBs are playing this year. I mean, we have with Cam being a vet, And then also, some transfers that came in that are veterans back there, and then also throwing in Ben Morrison, who has all the skill set to play at the next level. I love the way that they're competing. I think Coach Mickens and Coach Leary has put them in position to go out there and make plays. Go out there and show off their skill set, because like you talked about, it's not too much zone out there. They're able to play man and to play free. And so even that play that Ben Morrison made, I thought the coverage was great, all around. But we talk about being able to being in great position and then being able to get your eyes back. And so you usually, as a DB, sometimes when you're chasing, you may not have an opportunity to get your eyes back and make that play. But Ben was in great position. He was on his guy. The D line made Caleb move around, and so when he lofted it up there, we had an opportunity to go make a play. And so, because if it wasn't, I think if it wasn't Ben, it might have been Clarence. Maybe it was another DB there.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't Ben making the play, I think it was going to be another one of our guys that made the play as well. And so I think, just being able to put those guys in position to let their athleticism show, let their knowledge of the game show as well. I mean, it's been fun to watch. And I tweeted this out like shortly after the game, but Coach Light, when I was there, he used to say luck favors speed and knowledge. And so when you got guys playing fast, you got guys in the right position, I mean, we're going to come up lucky sometimes. And so, and that's always, the benefit of, being fast, being on point and knowing where to be when the opportunities come.
Shaun, I wanted to ask you this question because I've been thinking about it a lot since the game. Because I really think one of the things this year, I mentioned the thing about like they don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. And I wanted to ask you about when you went into a game and you knew that there was like they had that dude on the team, and you knew that there was going to be a certain amount of times that obviously there's going to be some times when there is a one-on-one with that guy. But a lot of the times you're preparing, like you're going to bracket him. You're going to make sure there's someone over the top. There's always some kind of plan for that specific guy. And there's a lot of teams that have that guy, but USC, as good as their guys are, there isn't one guy that's there. And I think Branch is probably eventually going to be that guy. But to me, and maybe it's because he was out or whatever, but from what I've seen from him this year, it's like he's got a package of plays that are just for him, and that's it. Like he's not like he might have Tyreek Hill speed, but he's not Tyreek Hill like the way they use him. Like they're not that kind of thing. So when you go into a game and you don't have to concentrate, you can just go out and execute your defense, and just everyone kind of can do their role rather than having to say like, oh, there's 87. There he is. Like you have to know where a guy is every play. Like, what's the difference in approach, like just in preparation for the week and when you're actually playing it in a game?
I think when you look at compared to the Ohio State game, when you're comparing for Emeka, and then also you're preparing for Marvin, the game plan is a little different. I mean, practice is a little different for sure, because all the coaches are like this, like we got to cover these guys. We can't let these guys beat us, things like that. And even when we played Devontae Smith, didn't go as well as it did when they played Ohio State, but that was an emphasis, in the meeting room, and then also on the field. It's like we got to cover number 6. We can't let number 6 beat us, and those things. And so when you're so focused and so dialed in on one player, you maybe overemphasize the game plan of sticking to him, and you may let some other guys beat you. And in the case of this USC game, and maybe having an opportunity to play team defense and things like that, to where it's like you're not so focused on one guy. I think that's where a lot of the plays came into play. Being able to play 2-man, being able to rush with 4 and get pressure with 4 gives us an opportunity to get our eyes back in the secondary. And also as a DB, you play more free because like when you play Marvin and those guys, it's like, okay, like we know we have to make sure we lock him down. Like if he slips free, I have to run over there. I have to be there. I have to be on top of him and things like that. Whereas like just not me, even just it goes as far as like not hearing it so much in the meeting room and not hearing it so much throughout the week. It just allows you to play more free. Like, and I'm not saying they weren't worried about Zachariah or anyone else on the team, but it's just you just go in there with a little more freedom and a little more tenacity to where it's like, yo, if the ball is in the air, I'm gonna go make a play on it. And so I thought we played excellent. We weren't playing tight at all, and so I even think like there's times in that Ohio State game where you look at the end of the game, you look at that last drive, and I think we're playing. I wouldn't say we're playing cover 4, and we got our nickel who sprints out to number 1 receiver, and they give up, and then Emeka catches that ball like right on the 1 yard line. I think that could have been emphasis on throughout the week in practice, our game plan, to where it's like if Marvin's out there or if one of the receivers out there, make sure we sprint out to number 1. Like we can't let their number 1 receivers beat us. And that could be coaching. That could be something that was just instilled in his mindset that week, where it's like that probably made him sprint out there and leave the hash mark open. And so I would just say like there could be little things like that where it's like you could tell this week the guys just had fun. Like the guys were playing free, they were running around. Everyone fed off X's playmaking ability, and so those are little things that I think throughout the week that can linger on into the game when you play against those elite receivers versus when you play against a collective group. You all just have to be on keys.
We had a question from Joel Easton. This is unrelated to the game because I didn't see a ton of robber in this game, but I've mentioned in other shows, like especially against NC State, where Notre Dame was playing a ton of robber with their safeties. And people had asked, like, what does that mean, being a robber safety? So if you could enlighten the people on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would just say if you're watching Notre Dame football, Kyle Hamilton's freshman year, that's the example of a robber. I mean, so a safety who is usually we did it when we had 3 safeties when we were in dime package, but when there's one of your safeties or even sometimes a linebacker, depending on the blitz, when you have him sitting in and reacting off the quarterback. So he's playing from depth and he's reacting strictly off the quarterback's eyes, the direction of his shoulders and things like that. And so an example from this season was DJ Brown against Ohio State. The dropped interception late on that last drive. He was playing, I want to say he was playing robber there, where he didn't really necessarily have a man to guard. He was just straight off the quarterback's eyes. And so as soon as he saw the quarterback deliver the ball, he jumped the route and got the PBU. But so that's pretty much what a robber is someone who can play from depth, read the quarterback, and then drive and break and drive off his throw.
Yeah, another example of that is the interception he got against NC State, where he was able to jump that route. A question that someone asked about this, at the time was, do robbers have pass-off rules? And so in other words, like, do robbers have rules? It's like pick up number 1 or pick up number 2, or is it strictly like, pick up number 3 or pick up number 2? Like, do they have rules to where they're going to jump and whether or not, like if they cross center of the field, like does that mean that they're going to leave that go and they're going to have someone else take that? What are the rules for robbing in terms of just like, or is it strictly just like a freelance position?
Yeah, so it depends. So if it was like cover 1 robber, if there was 1 robber in the defense, usually no, there's no cutting or anything like that. So or nickel or corner has a tough down on that in that situation, to where it's like if they do run crossers, you just better get behind the receiver and tailpipe in a position so you don't get picked or anything like that. As far as there could be 2 robbers on 1 play as well. And so this was what we ran a lot with Coach Lee in our dime package, mostly on 3rd down. We would have 2 robbers. And so there was one situation to where if who you're getting cut, we call it cut. So like in a situation to where there is a robber on the field and you are able to pass it off, we call him a cutter. And so pre-snap and post-snap. So pre-snap, we communicate like, if he goes inside, you'll cut him for me, and then I'll replace you as the robber. And so if now obviously the things they have to come out, they have to play out that way. But That can get tricky too a little bit, because like if it's a low drag or anything like that, there is no cutting. But if it runs, a dig, or if it runs right into our robber, then yeah, we're able to cut it. And so honestly, it just depends on the call, and it depends on the number of robbers that we have. But yeah, so there's been opportunities where we've been able to cut a robber or cut a defender because it's easier on a robber, and then now you replace that robber. And that was I love doing that. I used to hope I never really got to play robber because
everybody wants to be the robber.
Everyone wants the freelance.
I was always at nickel and playing man, so I never got to play robber as much. And so when we switched positions and maybe Kyle Hamilton was cutting me and I got to play robber, it was the most fun, because in that position you get interceptions, you get big hits. You do a lot of things from that position. So yeah, it just depends on the play call.
I actually wanted to ask you about a play that Thomas Harper made in this game where he got a sack, but it was a play where it was actually an incredible play by Caleb Williams, where he avoided Riley Mills, and then he avoided Howard Cross. And it was something that like he did a bunch last year against Notre Dame, right? Where he did it, but somehow that turned into like a 30-yard play for them because he was just incredible Houdini out there. And I mean, he was pulling it again on this play, and Harper was not a rusher on the play. He broke off, and like he just saw that he was going, and then he just went for it. And that made me think of you, because that made me think of like, this is a very Shaun Crawford.
Jamie, we are simpatico.
Yeah,
I have it here ready to talk about, because I want to ask the same question.
Yes, it's just like a totally instinctive play.
Here's Thomas Harper right here. Okay, so they're playing. It looks like they're playing Tampa 2, because Bertrand drops towards the middle of the field, and we have split safeties. I want to talk to you about cover 2 in a second as well, because that's an interesting defense. So we'll let it run, and then Shaun can talk about it. So here's Thomas Harper here. And so he's coming off, and then he's just going to leave. And then it's like instinctively just says, you know what, I'm coming, and makes a beeline.
This is a plan for me. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
Is it frozen?
It's frozen right now. Now I can see Mills almost.
Let me see if I can
getting him or whatever. That's where I see it. But anyways, for audio purposes, we can I'll explain it first just in case it doesn't get going for us. But Mills kind of had.
Is it better now? Is it better now?
It's still frozen for me. I don't know if it is for Shaun, but
it's frozen for me as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'll just take it off then. It's bad radio. Just talk about
it. So Mills basically had him, not quite a horse collar, but like had his back, and he got away from that, and then Cross is probably thinking, this is I'm gonna just plant him here, and he just did a whoop, and made a miss, and then he's you got guys chasing. It's not that different than Branch on the punt return, where just people are just chasing the whole time. And so as Greg was saying, Harper, he's in coverage, like he has his responsibility, and he obviously sees that Williams is doing that. And it's always a case of, you're worried that, Williams might escape, and then all of a sudden he might hit your man, but you got to like trigger and go. You got to make a decision, right? Like you either don't do it or not. And he might have got sacked anyways, because I believe that, Bertrand was there.
Yeah. The number of players were rallying.
Yeah. So, but still, obviously Harper was a big part of finishing that. And just kind of when you're in the moment, Shaun, and you get that, and you see that like quarterback scramble, and then there's potential, and there's almost like caught in between, like no man's land. Like, at what point is it just like in your brain, you're just like, man, I'm just making a football play, and you're just going for it? And like, have you had, I'm sure you've had situations like that. Like I can like see it in my head, but like, do you remember situations like that where you had broke off and were able to like get a quarterback, maybe not for a sack, but on a scramble?
One play that comes to my mind is when we were playing Clemson my 6th year, the COVID year, and they had I'm sorry, it was Florida State. We were playing Jordan Travis, and they were running crossers. And so I was covering one of the crossers, and he started to escape to the right side of the formation, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just go, I'm gonna just make the tackle, because I believe that sometimes they look like a runner, and in that moment you kind of just try to go and make that decision, and make that play. But one thing a coach will say and one thing we'll say is you're never wrong when you're right, and so that's one of those plays where it's just, if you do it, you better make the play. And because when you come up to the sideline, coaches are going to be like, hey, like, don't do that, stay in coverage, things like that. But, they'll tap you on the butt for making a play. But, it could go either way. And I would say, like, in a situation where I think it was a perfect situation, because he was scrambling. He already made two tacklers miss, and there were guys around. Like, it was, I don't think if he had a clean pocket, or if he had like a clear throwing window, or if he was standing straight up.
And he had already thrown those picks. Yeah.
And so I don't think he would have taken that chance. But, and also when you're playing a lead playing with a little lead, like you probably is just a little bit more aggressive there in those situations. But I mean, I'll talk about a moment where Cam Hart, I want to say against Florida State again, this was at Florida State, and Cam won't mind that I talk about it, but I think I'll forget the coverage that they were in, but this is when Kyle Hamilton had the cross the field interception, and the receiver was wide open. But I want to say it was Cam, where the Cam came off the receiver and just blitzed, and tried to sack the quarterback, and then he actually threw it, which would have probably been like a 30-yard gain if Kyle didn't intercept it. But so there's situations to just, in the game where you shouldn't do that. You should stay on your receiver. You should let the D-line do what they do. You should let the linebackers do what they do, and then we stay in coverage. But, in this situation, obviously, I think it's a different situation where he was already scrambling. He was already, running around. He wasn't in the best position to throw it. And so I think it was okay for him to come off there and make that play.
So it's basically just a true you better win.
You better, you better win for sure. You better win. And you better hope that there's no, that there are people behind you too. If someone, if he does end up getting it off into your guy. So, because I mean, obviously it can turn bad quick.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in that situation before where I've been like the single safety, and a team would basically roll right every time, and they would hit their slot on an out. And so I saw the roll right, and I just sprinted, like left the middle of the field, and I was able to break up the pass. They ran it again, and I went to do the same thing, and they stopped and threw the backside post. Fortunately for me, it was they threw it too far and it was incomplete. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of one of those things, like, pick your moments, and once you pick your moment, like, that's it. You can't do any more, because they're going to see it and they're going to exploit you that way. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was going to say that the one kind of like on the opposite side of that, there's Jaylen Sneed had that one play where, I mean, he kind of broke off a rush, and Caleb was trying to do like a little check down to the back, and he almost picked it, right? Like he broke up the play. But that's the kind of play where it's like especially unique to Jaylen Sneed, because he is this kind of hybrid athlete who can go and make a play like that. And, it's part of what makes him kind of a special player, and why he can be so special is because he could do that and actually make that play. But there's like a million things that could go wrong in there of him, like just dropping back and not getting there, or him like Williams pumping it and then all of a sudden just going, right? Like there's a lot of stuff there that could happen. And it's like, yeah, he was right. So it was like great play, but but it could have been wrong because he's there. And that's the kind of thing with Sneed, where there are things in this game, like obviously he gets a sack, right? But that sack, I don't want to take away credit from him. He did a great job doing exactly what he was supposed to do. But that's like a scheme sack, like that isn't like him just straight winning, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's absolutely the scheme, and then him running it perfectly within the scheme and then getting that sack. And there's obviously a difference between, say, like It didn't end up as a sack for him, but that Riley Mills like push-pull play where he
Yeah.
beat the guard bad, and then that kind of led to the Nana sack. First of all, too, you just love having those. I mean, Nana, all credit to him too. That's great. You finished the play, but it's like, he's celebrating like crazy, and I'm like, Riley Mills is the guy who got this sack, right? Like that's also a very defensive line thing where you're just like, yeah, there needs to be assists on some of these sacks, right?
Right.
They need to give like the assist for the guy who actually created this play. But I think with Sneed, and you could see it too with him, and obviously he's been he's playing more on third down. Like this was the most he played on third down in terms of just rushes. This was the most he lined up off the edge, the most that he had in just terms of pure pass rush reps in a game. And I think it's part of that from Botello being out, and Botello hasn't been as effective as Sneed when he's been in there. But you can see things with Sneed where that's why he needs the reps to be in there more, because if they would have ran that stunt earlier with him, I'm not sure if he would have ran it exactly how he should have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you run that and you get rewarded for it. That's perfect. And then you see exactly why you do that, because it's not always going to be you who gets the glory when you're doing it, because sometimes that tackle is going to come down and somebody else, and that means like, or the guard is going to go with him, and Bertrand's just going to come in, or Cross is going to come in free, right? Like it's just going to happen different times, but it's also just an example of like, do your job within the play, and you don't want to take away someone's creative freedom who's such a great athlete, but when you do your job within the play, really good things can happen.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shaun.
Yeah. And just to the point of, the schemed up blitzes and pressures, I think those, the excitement of those come from, well, first of all, like being able to finish a play, especially on a quarterback like Caleb, is, I want to give him, credit for that, because I think early in the game, there were some plays that JJB, he got to Caleb, but he wasn't able to finish it. Caleb was able to extend plays, whether it wasn't maybe long plays, but he was still able to finish plays. And so even sometimes the plays are schemed up, it's still a challenge too, because sometimes when you're running free, those are sometimes the hardest ones to get the quarterback on the ground, And so, and especially as a nickel too, you talk about like a nickel blitz, and most of those are schemed up to where the D line, they twist for you, and then you just insert into the open gap. And so for, I think when people celebrate and things like that, I think it's just like you're celebrating just the.
No, I'm not. Whatever. I don't want to hate on him.
No. But I think you're definitely like excited. One, the coaches are probably like the most excited, because they're like, oh yeah, like it worked to perfection, just how we drew it up. And then the players is just like, that your time is coming. And so like you mentioned, like next time it might be JD who gets the sack. Next time it might be Nana who gets the sack. Towards like they're all working together. And so that's what I get excited about that. And, when you're able to finish a play and finish the sack, I think that's, real credit to him too. Because I do like Sneed. I think he's coming along this year. And he's going to be a big time playmaker in the future for sure for Notre Dame.
It's like Jamie said, like hybrid athlete, right? Like that's why you want someone like him, to where it's a scheme sack, but at the same time, like maybe you're not running that scheme if you don't have guys like him or have guys like JB, right? Like, so it's important, right? The versatility is important on your defense and also in your wardrobe, Jamie. And what you want to do is you want to have something that you can wear to a business meeting, a cocktail party, a wedding, anything like that. Shaun knows all about ESQ clothing. I think he's worn ESQ on all the player walks and that sort of thing. And if you at home are looking to upgrade your wardrobe, ESQ has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt, crafted from high-quality bamboo fabric. It's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. Not only more sustainable than cotton, but also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle-resistant, even machine washable. Machine washable, Shaun, saving money on the dry cleaning bill. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo dress shirt on all of Notre Dame's top players and coaches. It's the perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. Use ISD 15 and get 15% off all online items. That's ISD15 for 15% off all online items. Shaun, I do want to talk about the Notre Dame offense. It's tough. It's tough. Like, okay, you got. I want an honest opinion. Okay, on the passing concept specifically. Okay. Does as a defender, would it make you nervous what they're running out there? Just like, would it make you kind of like, I'm a little bit concerned about, they're going to get me on this, they're going to get me on that. Like, does it make you nervous? Because to me, as a former player, I just feel like some of this stuff is fairly easy to identify. So I just want to get your opinion on that.
I wouldn't say that the concepts would make me nervous, honestly, as a defender, but also, and like, I don't want to discredit any of the playmakers. I think they need, time. I think we have an entirely, young group of receivers.
For sure.
But I would also say, like, as a defender, the receivers wouldn't necessarily make me, or wouldn't threaten me at all. So, and that's, like I said, I don't discredit any of the receivers that are in the room. I think they just need time to develop and grow. And also, we've had some injuries to our best receivers, but that's my opinion on it. I think we have a great, like, a tremendous running game, and then I think Sam, as a veteran quarterback, has a great arm and makes great decisions, whether to throw it, run it, or throw it away, things like that. I think he excels very well in our offense. But as far as just some of the calls and just the guys running the routes, I would say there's not much there that's threatening.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, like, look, I think the Tyree touchdown, like, I think that is tremendous scheme by Jared Parker, and it's like a great call against that specific defense as well. I put it up on Twitter where it's like, basically, you have the perfect route against the defense that they're running, because basically he runs the post. They don't have any coverage on the backside for the field. And so basically he's running an open space. So that's a really good call by him. And I think that, to be fair, I was thinking about this kind of on Sunday and yesterday as well. Like, we look at Notre Dame's defense and what they're able to do in the back. Like, you have 5th-year Cam Hart. You have 5th-year DJ Brown, or 6th-year DJ Brown. Yeah, you have 6th-year DJ Brown. You have senior Ramon Henderson, senior Xavier Watts, and then Ben Morrison, who's obviously, like, maybe the best corner since, like, Bobby Taylor. So, like, Clarence Lewis is a senior. Thomas Harper is a 5th-year guy. So you have so much experience back there, and that allows you to do these things. Whereas Notre Dame, they had 2 upperclassmen wide receivers. Jaden Thomas is hurt. Deion Colsey's hurt. Tobias Merriweather's a true sophomore, right? Season cut short last year, so he doesn't have a ton of reps. Rico Flores, freshman. Jaden Greathouse, freshman. Chris Tyree's been a receiver for this year, and that's it. So, like, the degree of difficulty there is so much more just in terms of experience, right? So, to be fair to those guys and to Jared Parker as well, like, the job that he has to, it's not like he has a veteran laden group, he doesn't. They tried to bring in
not having Salerno is
no,
John
exactly.
Exactly. Like, that hurts, because he's a very good blocker, and they could use him in the run game, especially. Right. And they missed that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think that, those guys need time. Right. And I think we saw Notre Dame's defense, even though it was a little bit more experienced last year, like, it didn't look like this, so I just feel like the question that I gave Shaun is a little bit harsh. Right. But I do need to give grace to them on that fact, and just that, it is a tougher job. But at the same time, it's just, I feel like there's a lot more there. And Shaun, you're a good person to ask about this, because Jamie and I talk about play action all the time and how effective it can be and what it can mean for defenders. Like, what is the effect of, like, a real good play action passing game on defenders, not just linebackers? Because I think people think about linebackers a lot, but also safety and also the corners as well. Just like a play action passing game, like, what does that do to the eyes of defenders and kind of in the middle of a play, like how it affects the way that the defensive backs think.
Mm-hmm. I would say for a corner, mostly it wouldn't affect us as much as it would as a safety or maybe a nickel, just because you may get longer developing plays, which leads to longer route concepts and things like that. So you may have to cover, a little longer. And then, but as a corner, you do know that because our safeties might be tied up for the run or our nickels is in the run game, that we may be on an island most of the game and that we may expect safety help, but the safety help might not be there because the safety ran, and then now he's not there for the post, or now he's not there to help you over top or anything like that. So as far as a corner, your mindset, it may change a little bit to where it's like, okay, these route concepts may be a little bit longer, and then my safety help may be a little bit later because he's tied into the run game. And so those two things for a corner. But as a safety, when I got to play it my 6th year, I mean, when we were playing teams like Clemson and teams like even like BC and teams like that run the ball heavy, you are tied into that because you would hate for and USC has a good running back. We have a number of great running backs. And so you would hate for Audric Estime to get through the line of scrimmage full speed, and you are 15 yards back in the back pedal, and now you got to make a hard tackle while he's coming full head of steam. Whereas like as a safety, and this was something that I saw with ETN, where he's getting the ball coming downhill, but like I want to trigger fast because the quicker I get to him around my guys, it's an easier tackle for me. I can force him to my leverage, things like that, where it's like it's harder in the open field to make that tackle. And so I do think safeties have that issue when playing us, that we have to stay tied in there, that they have to stay tied into the run. The nickel has to react fast when the ball is run to his side and things like that. So I would say like our play action and our run game definitely helps out our receivers a ton, and it helps out Sam a ton as well. But yeah, so it's different for each position. But when playing against our guys, we have guys who hit the hole hard, hit the hole fast, and are strong and bigger. I'm sure safeties are definitely tied into the run a lot more than what they usually are.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I wanted to, just before we kind of get off of this too, I just wanted to give some love to Chris Tyree because
for sure.
Obviously, I mean, he's had a terrific transition to wide receiver, made a huge play in this game, but he's made so many big plays. And really, aside from the drop against Louisville, I mean, he's just been pretty much lights out, right? And he's got 7 receptions of 20 plus yards on only 21 targets. Like, that's pretty insane. Like, that's just incredible. He's got 3 catches of 40 plus yards this year. And to kind of put that in perspective, like Notre Dame perspective, like Kevin Austin had 4. He had 4 in 2021. Javon McKinley had 4 in 2020. Like Chase Claypool didn't have that much in 2019. EQ St. Brown had 5 in 2016, and Will Fuller had 5 in 2014. I mean, just to show you how good Will Fuller is, he had 9 in 2015, which is just insane. But considering that, how Tyree is used, and like to be able to have that kind of impact in that little amount of targets is pretty insane. And he actually out of slot receivers with 20 with 20 targets or more, he's averaging 12.6 yards after the catch per reception, so which is 2nd in the country. So I mean, I really can't think of it kind of outside of him not bringing in that one ball. Like, it really couldn't have gone any better. Him moving over there. And I really think that, Notre Dame, that's a guy that, because he has another year potentially because of the COVID year.
Yeah.
So, because his 2020 freshman season doesn't count. So that's a guy that I think they really need to try to convince to come back, because I think he's been huge for them this year, and I think he could only get better.
So I feel like he's done kind of what I thought Tobias would do in terms of just like one a game, right? And that's what he's been. I think for Shaun, like even the pass that he dropped, right? Like if you're watching that on tape, it's like, man, that's still a smoke show, like he still is wide open by yards. So it's just like that concerns you. Like that right there, like is a guy where it's like, it's going to help him so much more underneath, because it's like, I have to get into my pedal against him. Like if he shows me any kind of like threat deep, like I do need to get out of my pedal, and I need to start running, because he can run by me. Right. So like, that's the kind of thing that can help. And just like when you see play action there too, right? Like it opens up the underneath game, and also the RPO game. Because a lot of people talk about RPOs, Shaun, like tell me, and we've talked about this before, but just kind of as a refresher, like how difficult RPOs are. Because I had someone ask me on my Sunday show, like it feels like RPOs are underrated or overrated, like shouldn't run them. I'm like, no, like RPOs are cheating basically for the offense.
Yeah,
like
especially in college football.
Yeah, like you should not be able to run or throw the ball downfield on a run play. Like it's cheating, right? So how difficult it is for you. And Joel Easton's asking what types of routes concepts does Notre Dame need to run or capable of running to put defenses in more of a bind? Like I feel like RPOs are a perfect example of that. So tell us like how difficult that is for the safeties and or nickel to cover that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we played Wake Forest a bit, and I think we'll play we play Wake Forest later this year, and I don't know if they have the similar offense that they had with Sam, but Wake Forest probably ran RPO the best that I've ever seen a school run it. I mean, they are very delayed in their RPO, meaning that some in an RPO you can pull the ball quick, and get rid of it, but Wake Forest, their style of RPO, they'll hold the running back in there for like 2-3 seconds and really hold that safety in a bind, or that overhang defender in a bind, and then pretty much pick off of him and make a play depending on what he does. And so Clemson also big RPO team. Clemson's offense isn't really that complex either. It's starting to get maybe a little bit exposed now that Trevor is gone. And all the weapons are, they don't have the same caliber of weapons. But when we played Clemson, it was pretty much RPO. I mean, you had to be dialed in on the run because it was Travis back there, and then on the receivers because they had Justin Ross, they had Higgins, they had number 3, I forget his name right now, but he was a good player. Amari Rogers. And so all those players excelled off of RPO, and so. As for a defender, when you're defending an RPO as a corner, obviously depending on the play, what you get. Like if you're a man, if you're in press, RPO really doesn't necessarily matter to you. But as a nickel and as a safety, you're tied in on that because safeties are in the run game, and so they're in the run game, but they're also in the pass game as well. And same with the nickel. So meaning that when you show run and linemen are going downhill like it is a run, the safety has to trigger because the safety is accounted for in the run game. The safety has a gap that he needs to fill. Same with the nickel. Now, if you run away from the nickel probably he slides. His job isn't that important. But if you run to the nickel, he probably has to fill that C or that D gap. And if there's a good RPO team or a good RPO system in play, you can pull that nickel, and now that slot receiver is open, and you're forcing a huge one-on-one tackle with the safety over top. And so that's the bind that you get put into when a team runs RPO successfully. And I think that we honestly should probably, exercise RPO a little bit more, especially with younger receivers, to where, maybe we don't rely on them to have to win one-on-one, to have to win, with their ability or things like that. But where, sometimes it's systematic, and Sam probably knows it better than anyone. If this safety moves off the hash, or if this safety comes down, throw the ball to one, or if the safety stays high, hand the ball off. And so I think we have great running backs to a point where teams will respect the run enough, and will be able to easily catch, some teams, triggering on a run and then hitting some of our receivers. Because like you talked about Chris Tyree in the slot, like if you got him in the slot and we run an RPO, I would love to see. So, say it is cover 4 and you got the one receiver locked up on the corner, or you got the corner locked up on the one receiver, and then now you got the overhang, which is, I don't know if it's still the rover in our system, but you got the overhang and then a safety over our slot receiver. I would love to put the ball or show the ball in SMA's belly, and Chris Tyree runs a quick out route, give it to him, and now he's one-on-one with our safety or one-on-one with their safety. Just quick plays like that to get the ball in their hands quick, where it's an easy read. I think it's an easy catch as well. And then you give a lot of guys one-on-one opportunities to make a play in the open field. And so to the route and concept, I think that could be something that Notre Dame definitely runs, because now if the safeties stay high, now we have Audric Esime and we have Audric Esime and Co that can now get to the second level a little bit easier when the safeties aren't pressing down as fast.
Yeah, hopefully that's something that can be worked out over the break. Question for both of you. I'll go to Jamie first. From Steve O'Coop, came in late. Sorry if I missed it, but what's been the catalyst for the red zone defense improvement, Jamie? I mean, obviously they were like literally the worst team in college football last year, and this year they're one of the best. So what do you see where you feel like it's just been better for Notre Dame?
I do think Golden has been more aggressive in the red zone. That is part of it. So
yeah.
I think they've ran more pressures. So that has been something where they're I think they kind of over relied on like rushing 4 sometimes, when especially because I think that's a difference in the NFL too, where there's just college quarterbacks in general, when you're just bringing heat, like when you're bringing like 6, it like the good college quarterbacks, yeah, it like they're going to be able to make plays, but most college quarterbacks, it's like they're just getting rid of the football. They're not even thinking about it. Even Caleb Williams in this game, right, where they brought 6 in this play, where he's seeing it and it's just immediate. Their check is just throw that hitch, and it was like, I mean, Hart was all over it, right? Like that, and that was kind of something that they did often too, right? And that's kind of like their response to a lot of their blitz stuff. But so I think that's part of it. The other part is I just think the personnel is better. So yes, some of that is familiarity with scheme, but some of it is like, well, you're getting year 2 of Ben Morrison. So a lot of times people are just looking for a matchup on the boundary, and you're saying, okay, well, now you got that guy has to win against Ben Morrison. So that's a lot tougher, right? That's part of it. The defensive line is just better. They're better this year. They're better against the run. So teams aren't able to run it as well once they get inside like the 20 or the 10, or it's like it's a 1-and goal situation. All of a sudden someone's getting 6 yards, and then it becomes 2-1 goal at the 3. I mean, it's just a different situation, right? That then getting a stop there, and all of a sudden it's 2-1 goal at the 9. It's like the offense corner has to think completely different, right? So the backers have obviously been better. Just versus the run, they're better. So I think that's kind of a lot of it is just kind of personnel, knowledge of the scheme, and just Golden kind of being more aggressive. And then also too, like they just make more negative plays there, and that's part of the aggression thing. Like last year, the havoc rate in the red zone was like 11%, which is bad. It's like 18.5% this year, which is obviously very good.
Shaun, when are defensive backs? This is a question from here we go, John Collins. When are defensive backs taught to turn, and when are they taught to basically play through the hands of the receiver without turning around?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's honestly a field thing. You can look at situations where and I'll touch on Ben Morrison a couple times, and so I think against Ohio State there was a play. I forget the receiver, but it was a deep ball, and he was able to turn around and get his hands on the ball, almost intercepted. And to where in this game against USC, he didn't turn around, and he ended up breaking up the pass. The guy ended up catching the ball, but he was out of bounds. And then on that one, he didn't turn around. And so It's honestly a feel thing. It's every defensive back is different. It's honestly when they feel comfortable, and it just depends on if you're in phase or not. And what I mean by in phase is if you're so what we like to as a cornerback, we like to measure it by the V of their collar. I don't know if it's by the V right here. And so if I'm running next side by side with someone and I'm able to get maybe my shoulder into their V of the neck and then turn around and then throw my hands up like I'm a receiver, then yeah, I'll probably end up trying to turn around and make a play on the ball. But if I'm chasing and I'm in that, if I'm in that cover that 2-man situation to where it's like I'm a yard or two behind him and I'm inside, I need to I don't have time to look over my shoulder and try to make an interception on the ball. I need to play through the hands, so I need to reach with my off arm to extend my body and play through the hands, because at the end of the day, his hands will show me where the ball is. And so it just depends on the position that the cornerback or the defensive back is in that position, but also it depends on his comfortability and his own skill set when he wants to turn around and when he's capable of turning around.
Sorry, Greg, but I just want to ask this for both of you guys, because obviously, Greg, you were a safety as well. Like that play where Morrison got the PI, right? And that was a play where, he was out of phase, and in that play, I mean, he was just, I think he would probably admit he was just looking for, he just wanted to pick it. Like, so he had turned back and he was just like waiting, and he just lost Rice on that play. And then he was like, okay. And then he knew he was in trouble, and he maybe didn't need to commit PI, but it was the smart play because he knew he had lost him. Right. So it was just like, you're doing that. And, I had a guy that I played with in college that was like, he was like the kind of old vet who was teaching all the young pups there. Right. Like he was a guy who had like played at like 2 JCs, and this was like his fourth school. And he's just a guy who had been all around. And I mean, he wasn't the fastest guy. He wasn't he wasn't the tallest guy or anything like that. But this guy just like, knew how to just the tricks of the trade. He just had an idea, and his thing was always, you know what? Like, I know when I'm beat, I mean, I don't care what I got to do. I'll give him 15 and I live to fight another day. And I just wanted to ask both of you guys kind of about that mentality and kind of like in relation to that play, because that's what made me think of that mentality there for even a guy like Ben Morrison, who obviously doesn't get beat very much. But just when you get in that situation, and for me, and I think a lot of fans watch that and think like, oh man, that's a bad play. But to me, it's a good play.
Go ahead, Shaun.
Yeah, I mean, not every player is honest, and like you talked about, that guy was a veteran. Like, not every player has the instincts and the savvy to know that, oh, I'm beat. I should just hold him. It's only 15 yards. 15 yards is better than a touchdown. And I think that comes with instincts. Like, Ben is a very knowledgeable player. Comes from a football family. And so I'm sure he, watches a lot or watched a lot of ball growing up and things like that. And so when you get in a position like that, sometimes, especially in college, there's only 15 yards no matter where the PI is, whereas the NFL is where the foul occurs. And so, especially in college, like, I mean, it is one thing. Now, you don't want to get into a habit of getting beat or jumping routes or guessing or things like that, where you got to have a lot of PIs. But I think every once in a while, like if you do do make that play, and you do have a pass interference and you only give up 15 yards rather than a touchdown, I think it's smart. I think that comes with instincts. I don't recommend like every player, trying to do it, because sometimes it's not even, necessary. Sometimes you'll have the ability to get back in phase and get back on the route and things like that. But the play that you're talking about, I think that just is that gives that's credit to Ben's savviness, his instincts, his knowledge of the game. And obviously we all know Ben won't make that a habit, but when an opportunity does come, and especially in a game like this, where they're an explosive offense. They only need, Caleb Williams. Don't give him an inch. He'll take a mile, and don't let him get comfortable. I think it was a very smart, play in this situation and in this game.
So that position is like the worst for any defensive back, right? When you're in chase and they're running deep, it's kind of like you're never really going to know when to turn around or where the ball's coming. You're very vulnerable in that position. What we used to do is, so the safety's coming, so Watts is coming over. What we used to do is we used to give a short call. So we would say, like, if the ball's short, we would say short, because then it's basically telling the corner, like, go ahead and turn around, because that's the thing. Like, you can try to avoid a PI if you're turned, because the thing is like, what happens is you try to time it and you try to just get lucky with, like, hopefully I hit this guy and the ball's on the way and the ball's like coming down. So you can get lucky that way. We used to give a short call. So it's like, go ahead and turn around and just kind of get your arms up, right? Make yourself like really big, get in the way of the receiver. That was something that we tried to do. As far as when to turn around on other plays, it's just a matter of like everything that Shaun said, and also like try to identify like what type of throw is coming. So when you're on the goal line, right, and you're running fade, like I think the one that Shaun was talking about against Ohio State, when he gets the ball turned kind of right at the end and they throw kind of like almost like a back shoulder, Ben gets the head around because I think he knew where they were on the field. That ball's not coming over the top. So I can turn around because he's going to try to throw it short, and he's going to try to throw almost like a back shoulder play. So I can turn around here. If he thinks the ball is going to go over the top, then maybe you don't want to turn around, because then they're basically leading the receiver to the back pylon. Any sort of slot fade, you're almost never turning around because it's just not conducive to that. Like, they're throwing it away from you. They're almost never throwing short, right? So that's one where it's like perfect to play through the hands. So yeah, it's just a matter of like,
that's a great point, Greg, because I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a guy turn his head and make a play on a ball on a slot fade.
Yeah.
And I can't recall it ever in my life, to be honest. Maybe I'm sure it has happened, but it just does not seem to ever happen.
You'd basically be counting on like these quarterbacks at this level to make like a really bad throw, and that's just like almost never the case.
Yeah, it was. I had one against Boston College. It was a slot fade.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, it was a slot fade, but it wasn't to the in the end zone.
It was a bad. Could have been a bad throw.
He put it inside. He put it inside.
Yeah, he definitely put it inside. Yeah. And I actually got in trouble for turning around. So, and that days, Coach Elko got on me after the game about turning around, and especially the way, because I turned inside. So
yeah,
I recommend don't turning around on the slot fade ever. So
there you go. Though you were right. That's just
If you're right, you're good.
But the thing is, though, it's like that kind of goes along with what we were talking about before. Like, in the moment, if you have a feeling and you know. Right. Like where the ball is coming from, and if you just sense it, like, I think that I know where this ball is, and the way the receiver's reacting, he's throwing inside, then I'm in a good position. I'll turn around, because he clearly wasn't being led, and so that was a position where, like, if I remember the play correctly, it was a position where the ball was coming short. He threw it inside. That would have been a good, perfect, like short call. You turn around and you just get your hands up. I mean, look,
right.
Playmakers make plays, Shaun Crawford, and that's why you were always around the ball. You were always making plays, and you're always doing it like that. So
and you talked about where it is on the field. Red zone, we're taught to never get our head around. We're always taught to play and play underneath because we are in the red zone, because there's no opportunity for the ball to go over top.
Right.
And then in the play where Ben had against Marvin Harrison, where he almost picked it off, we're always taught to turn. If we are going to turn our head inside because of the back shoulder play. So I think it does. It definitely does depend on where you are on the field and the type of throw, like you said, for sure.
Yeah, you do have to know what type of throw is coming.
And for the fans in the stands and on TV saying, turn around, get your head around.
Yeah.
It is very hard to do. It is very hard to do that.
You're vulnerable. Like you're not supposed to, right? Like you have a better chance of making
just getting a PBU, live another day. Yeah.
Shaun, you ever consider coaching? Justin Wilmus says born college football coach. Are you in the market?
I am not in the market yet. I think I'm too close to the game and to the guy. Like I thought about like even because when I first got done my first year out, I went back and worked with Coach Kelly's final year there. I went back and helped out for like a couple of weeks. I was in the DB room. I was on the field and doing things like that, helping out with the guys. But no, I can't. And I feel like I want to get a little bit older to the point where it's like, oh, I can't go out there and do that. But like when I feel that I can go out there and make the play that I'm trying to get him to make, I don't want to do it yet. So I think time will come. And I mean, I love the game and college. I don't know what level I would try to go to first. College football is, I mean, that's a 12-hour job, and recruiting, all that whole process is very tough. And so we'll see. It is a climb it's a climb in any industry or any level that you want to, coach at. So, but we'll see. I love the game, but right now I enjoy like going and being able to go see my friends play and just watch as a fan and, enjoy the game for the first time, not being, inside the locker room or on the field.
Yeah, and having conversations on the Varsity House podcast. And he's got Ian Book coming out on Friday. Nice interview with quarterback Ian Book. Tell us where we can find it, Shaun.
Yeah, so it's on all podcast platforms. The main one, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. But then also we do a video, either sometimes virtual, like we're doing now, or we'll do in person. That you'll see that we did with Ian Book. So you can find those on YouTube as well. So we drop one every Friday, and then sometimes we'll mix it up and drop 2 a week, depending on if Notre Dame makes me mad or not, and I got to get something off my chest. We'll go drop a Notre Dame featured or a specific episode.
All right. Well, look, I had a great time discussing this, talking ball, talking X's and O's. So this was really fun. Really glad we did this. Jamie and I will be back on Thursday. We'll do our mailbag show, and then we'll be back to regular content next week, talking about the game against Pitt and the Fighting Pits, and see if Phil Dracovic sees the field at any point, at any position. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show. Please like this show. Please hit the notification bell so we're going live. We'll be back on Thursday with the mailbag. Have a good rest of the couple of days, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.